All right, we're joined now by a man who helped the Marlins win the World Series in 2003, whose 18 wins ranked second in the National League and garnered an All-Star spot in 2004. Helped the Twins reach the playoffs twice and finished with a 2.51 ERA over 10 postseason starts. Carl Pavano. Carl, how are you today?
Landon, great. How are you?
Not too bad. All right, let's stop with your first big league stop, Montreal. By the time you arrived in 1998, the club was 4 years removed from having the best record in baseball, the strike that stole a championship chance from the organization, and the subsequent fire sale of many of its stars. What was it like playing for the Expos in those years north of the border?
Yeah, it's a good question, Landon. Being from, the northeast Connecticut, which is not too far south, 6 hours, I found myself in basically another country, kind of a foreign land. I mean, everyone's speaking French.
Right.
It's a very French-dominated, city, and all that was really cool experiences. The people were cool. The stadium, obviously, I think after that '94 season, they lost a lot of fans, and then talks about the team being taken away from Montreal caused a lot of bitterness. But for me, I remember I was 22 years old in my rookie season, so my focus was really trying to get on the field and do my job and keep my job. And, there's always that background noise of, things that happen in the city and possibly a stadium coming or possibly it being cut out of Major League Baseball. But, I thought it was a pretty cool place to experience at a young age. I don't know if I've ever would have, if I didn't play there, if I would have spent as much time there to really get to know what a cool country and city it really is. And then plus the history of the Olympics. They built that stadium in 1976 for the Olympics, and behind the stadium was a park that I actually ran through a bunch. It used to be a golf course. Now they made it into a park, and then there was apartments that they made for the Olympians. That was cool to be a part of that history and hearing some of the stories about the Olympics going through there. I thought those are interesting facts.
Then next you found yourself with the Marlins, and in 2003 the Fish won it all, which included winning the pennant after being down 3-1 in the NLCS to Chicago, with Carlos Zambrano, Mark Pryor, and Kerry Wood lined up for the final 3 games, and of course Bartman in Game 6. Walk us through that entire scenario, the attitude and approach of the club, what Jack McKeon had to say to the team, and of course the atmosphere at Wrigley Field with the fans as they watched Florida snatch their hopes away inning by inning.
We played our best baseball when we needed to. I wouldn't say every game we played very clean, but we played as a team. We had a great manager with a great voice that we all really resonated with, and there's just a good synergy. He kept things simple. Listen, you're not anything worth fighting for. You're gonna have to fight for it, and nothing's given. And today, whatever happens today, tomorrow's a new day. So we kept that approach. We got guys hot at the right time. We had starting pitchers going in the pen, holding down the pen. We had Josh Beckett, who I don't know how many times he pitched on short rest, do complete games, keeping the bullpen out of it. He was from a pitching perspective, you couldn't get any more locked in. And then you had guys that knew how to control pitchers. Juan Pierre, Louis Castillo, just their whole dynamic of speed and putting the ball in play and tough to strike out. And when they got on the bases, the pressure of stealing bases really opened up, tons of opportunities for the guys behind them to get, pitches because there's a lot of stress on the pitchers. So, we think you win the World Series, how much bad could you really say?
Right.
We had our tough times. We fired our manager that year. And our pitching coach we fired. We brought in, we had our problems as a team, but in the end, we overcame them and became the best team, which is a cool story.
Then you turned your Marlins success into a big contract with the Yankees, but it wasn't long before injuries began to take hold, preventing you from performing to your capability, if at all. What's that like for a player going into the buzzsaw of New York and having the perception that you weren't worth the investment from the fans and media?
If there was an ideal situation, that was the worst. It was just a really rough time for me, experience-wise, professionally. It was just one of those things where just one thing happened after another, and it was really at a time when the team needed third pitching. We had good depth, but one more arm, me being healthy, I think would have improved the team that much more, and they still went to the playoffs.
Right.
two out of those, 3 out of those 4 years. But it's no fun. I mean, it's no fun to sit on the sideline and watch your team have success and you're not being able to help out. And it's also frustrating. Every time you think you've cleared a hurdle, another one pops up. But that's life, and you got to deal with it. And fortunately, I had baseball after New York, and I had another good taste of what it is to be on a team and winning and helping, and so that was a good thing.
Then eventually you made your way to Minnesota and helped the team catch the Detroit Tigers and play a game 163, which had the potential to be the final game at the Metrodome. For someone who won a World Series, was that the most intense, exciting game you'd ever been a part of?
That was like one of the most intense months I've ever been a part of. I mean, everything got so elevated. It was incredible. I feel like I just fit right in. Everyone's game with pitchers, guys at the plate, Maurer, Morneau, Nathan in the pen, Guerrero. I mean, from 1 to 25, we were buying into it, and we were into it, and we were all about the team, and it was just you catch lightning in the bottle like that, and it was a team that kind of stayed around, and then everyone's game got elevated at the end, and then you had that 163 where I threw the night before against the Royals to get us in there, and just the electricity the night before, the next night, and it was just, that's what I remember. I just remember about the, and it's a good story too, because 6 years before that, how many years before that? 10 years before that, they were talking about contracting the team.
Right.
10 years later, they've had like 6 postseason bursts. I mean, in a way, it was just fun being part of the history of Minnesota, and one of the things that kept baseball in Minnesota. It was a really cool time. You couldn't ask for better fans, and the people and the support, the organization. I mean, it was a really fun to be part of. I mean, I started off in Cleveland that year and was traded over there. Right. And I was fortunate. I look back at it as being, fortunate to be traded to such a great organization and a pretty cool situation.
Now, this is something that's always stuck with me. Nick Punto was a valuable member of the Twins for years, but down 2-1 going into the bottom of the 8th of Game 3 of that 09 ALDS against the Yankees. Punto led off with a double, then after a Denard Span infield hit going towards center field, Punto rounded third too far. It was subsequently picked off. Now, base running mistake to be sure, but some fans really got on Punto for that. So my question to you, as a teammate, fingers aren't pointed in such situations. You don't forget all that Punto had done to help the team get to the position they were in. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, no, I don't even think that. When I think of Nick Punto, I think of the shredder. I think, he was just a solid guy. And, hey, he played with an intensity that you wanted out there. He elevated everyone's game. He's that guy, and he's always been that guy. So he just, had a bad result on a situation where he's aggressive. So no one, other than him, I remember him squatting down into the catcher position and swatting his helmet on the turf and just dazing out, knowing that, at that point in the game, that was a big out for the Tigers, and he knew what was at stake. But I think he went and did some good things after that put us in a better position. So things happen in this game.
Speaking of that Game 3, you hung in pitch for pitch with Andy Pettitte, one of the best postseason pitchers the game has ever known. Between it being an elimination game and facing the team that you were criticized heavily for the contract you'd signed, what were your feelings going into and then during that game?
Oh, I wanted it bad. I wanted to dominate. I wanted so much to have. I was thankful to have that opportunity to put. I felt like that. I pitched against New York 2 starts that year, so that was actually my 3rd start against the team. And the year before and the 4 years before that, spending time there and having a really rough go professionally. I mean, it was a time for me to really be able to put some things behind me and go out there and pitch in probably one of the most meaningful games I've had. Other than pitching in the playoffs, the World Series with the Marlins, but there was a lot of meaning behind it. I didn't downplay it. But I didn't exactly let it be known that I wanted to go out there and be successful, and I wanted to be successful against that team.
Then you got the ball for the first start in Target Field history. What did that mean to you then and still mean to you now?
It was great. I mean, just the celebration the year before, making it into the playoffs, getting the wild card berth, and then getting the opportunity to start that first game. And I mean, you're joining history. I mean, that doesn't get much better than that when you get to be part of history of such a storybook city with great fans and a great organization. So I was really honored.
And Ron Gardenhire guided Minnesota to 6 division titles in 13 years at the helm, like you had mentioned a little earlier, but had been coming under scrutiny the past few years from fans and media alike, and was of course replaced by Paul Molitor heading into 2015. Having spent the final 4 years of your career under Gardy, what were your impressions of Gardenhire as a skipper?
One of the best men you'll ever meet. I mean, he just has a great demeanor about him. Guys love playing for him. And he's a no-nonsense guy.
Mm-hmm.
Don't make excuses. If you don't get the job done, don't look around. Find a way.
Mm-hmm.
And he was very supportive, though. But he had a very supportive side. But he was a great skipper. I just think his time there was, as the organization started getting depleted as far as talent. And my last year there, I didn't make anything easier. Much easier on the team.
Mm-hmm.
I pitched very poorly. I had an injury. And, the talent, sometimes it takes a little while for those organizations to stockpile that talent again and build that core of guys like they always had that went on to sign bigger contracts out of free agency and trades. And that's kind of the evolution of a team. I mean, very few teams stay, with that solid minor league system, solid major league continuity club. I mean, I think teams are constantly trying to build that, keep it as long as they can, and there's times where it's got to be broken up and built again. So I just think that's kind of the course that just follows.
Mm-hmm. Then let's move into this coming season. The Twins got good years from Phil Hughes and Kyle Gibson in 2014. They signed Irvin Santana over the winter and are hoping for a bounce-back season from Ricky Nolasco. Do you like the rotation Minnesota has with spring training nearing an end?
Yeah, I mean, they got some proven guys. They need innings. They need guys to go out there and get innings and out. And they got a good defense behind them. They're going to score runs, and it's just all about the innings. I mean, you can't tax the bullpen. All that stuff will go into play. They have starting pitchers that have the capability of going late in the game, and when you have 3 or 4 of those guys in a rotation, that's a good problem to have.
Now, the Royals are coming off of a pennant. The Tigers are always strong. Cleveland looks tough, and the White Sox made some significant additions in the offseason. With talented youngsters like Danny Santana, Oswaldo Arcia, and Kenneth Vargas already here, and Miguel Sano and Byron Buxton on the way to go along with established players like Joe Mauer, Brian Dozier, and Torrey Hunter, in what should be a tough AL Central, can the Twins contend this season, do you think?
I think it's all going to play out. I mean, I think they're in a stronger position than they were last year. There's no doubt about it. They got guys that have a little more experience. They got some more depth. The rotation is solid. They added another guy, and younger guys are going to take the next step. And I think that's what you wait for as an organization. And you fill in that system with talent and good players and good teammates, and I think they're in a good spot. I think they're definitely in the upward trend of their where they're at building wise.
And then finally, who do you feel would be the charm teams of 2015? Which 2 teams do you think will square off in the Fall Classic and then ultimately win it?
That's a good question. I always like the Cardinals. They just find a way to have great depth and great everything. The pitching, the patient, just everything. They're just a very solid organization. I don't shy away from them. But I like their team, and the Nationals look good. I think the Marlins, with the additions that they've made, I think are it's going to be very interesting. You got 2 guys in the middle of the lineup. They probably put 160, 170 RBIs into the lineup. So they got a guy that's a proven guy now with Stanton that they build around. They got a rotation. Guys that could fill some needs. It's going to be. I think it's very interesting in the East, especially with the Braves, where they've had to make some steps back. And I kind of like the. It's tough. It's tough for me. I'm thinking. I usually don't make predictions on teams. I have a tough time doing that. I could pick a couple teams, but I don't. It's such a when you're part of the game, you see the little nuances that can happen that really mess up the whole flow of the game. Everything can be good on paper, and then one bad day here, bad press, bad thing here, you're in some shape.
All right, well, Carl Pavano, thanks for taking some time to talk with us today. We really appreciate it.
All right, man.
All right, you take care.
Thanks, buddy.